Today, I want to show you the real foundations of what it takes to grow as a business owner. The science to it, the understanding of what is it that brings you to your next level. And I've been diving through the science, particularly this paper here. This is a Target article written by Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun. It's 20 years old, this article, and it's called Post-Traumatic Growth, Conceptual Foundations and Empirical Evidence. Don't worry about that. But my goal is to pull out this key foundation of growth for you, because what we find is that where we see growth in one area of life, so in this case, people experiencing trauma, the same biological and psychological mechanisms underpin it. And we can find how you can grow quicker. So the overall principle from this paper is that some individuals experience traumatic events and just completely capitulate. They fall apart. They get worse because of it. But others experience these events and their entire life just becomes so much more meaningful, so much more important. They become a better version of themselves. They become more capable, all because of it. And this paper set out to explore why that happens. And it's also going to show you the preconditions for personal growth too, as a business owner in whatever other domains of life you're operating in. So I'll explain the framework. I'll explain the understandings of what they show. And sometimes I will dip into this language like post-traumatic growth. That I'll do my best to reframe things for you, but I want you to kind of forget the lens of post-traumatic growth and rather see this as difficult shit that is going to happen to you in your life and how you grow because of it. So let me start off with with 3 quotes from this first page of the article. These are all experiencing significantly bad things, significantly negative things that happen to individuals. The first is a cancer survivor who said, "After my first cancer, even the smallest joys in life took on a special meaning. Watching a beautiful sunset, a hug from my child, a laugh with Dorothy. That feeling is not diminished with time. After my second and third cancers, the simple joys of life are everywhere and are boundless. As I cherish my family and friends and contemplate the rest of my life, a life I certainly do not take for granted." So just take into consideration that some people understandably completely fall apart under a cancer diagnosis, and the 3 that this guy experienced helped him find more meaning in life. Then the paper talks about a geology professor called Sally Walker who survived an airline crash that killed 83 people. She said, "When I got home, the sky was brighter. I paid attention to the texture of the sidewalks. It was like being in a movie. Now everything is a gift." And they go on to talk about Lance Armstrong, who offers this quote after his testicular cancer diagnosis. "Looking back, I wouldn't change anything. Had I not been sick, I wouldn't have met my wife. I don't feel unlucky to have gone through this. I've learned a lot and I grew tremendously in the past 2 years." Now, this is a key piece of growth, right? This just shows how much our lens can adapt and also just how much it's possible for you. These authors describe what this is, describe what post-traumatic growth is. But to do that, they also describe what trauma is. And they said it's a set of circumstances that represent significant challenges to the adaptive resources of the individual. So let's just frame that as something's really, really difficult to deal with, and you're going to struggle, and that's going to be a key theme, to deal with this. The struggle is a key theme. And they represent significant challenges to the individual's way of understanding their world and their place in it. So to grow, according to this post-traumatic growth model, you need something that completely shatters your worldview. Doesn't it change the shift, the thinking of how you view negativity, but also your own capacity to overcome that? We always need enough of this trauma or difficult situations in your business and life to provoke a significantly distressing experience. And again, this is going to be a key theme. The more you hide from this, the less likely you are to grow. They go on to write, significant post-traumatic growth may require a significant threat or the shattering of fundamental schemas like the way you view the world, how the world operates. It's kind of like a belief, and may at times coexist with significant psychological distress. So the more you hide from that distress in your business, the more you hide from the emotional pain, the less growth you're likely to experience. And actually, the more difficult things shatter your worldview, the more you realize you've got things wrong, the better you can iterate your growth. The growth that ensues is like this change in people that goes beyond the ability to resist a difficult experience, and it goes into an ability to and a movement beyond the pre-traumatic levels of adaptation. So what that means is, just like a difficult workout will push you and suppress you and make things very, very difficult, and you'll struggle for a time, you will come back stronger. It's the same thing here. It's exactly the same process. And when you look into the neurobiology and the neuroscience of how our brain adapts to challenge, this is written time and time again, that it's the stress and our struggle with it that creates the growth. We have to go into those difficult moments. We have to explore those exceptionally difficult times in order to grow. This is what it means to be an anti-fragile business owner. It means to come back better. It's what it means to be an anti-fragile person, let's put it. To a father, a husband, whatever roles, an athlete, whatever roles you play in life. It means I'm going to experience stress and then come back better. That's what anti-fragility is. It's a positive adaptation to that stress. The key thing, like I've said like 5 times already, is you have to struggle with it. It releases this whole neurochemical cascade of events when you actually struggle with something that your brain needs to grow to become plastic. And just like in training, we need enough of it to stretch you, but not so much that your body can't handle it. A key point in this is that it's not the traumatic event itself, or it's not the massive difficulty in your business itself that creates the growth. It's struggling with reality in order to conceptualize a new view of the world that actually does the work. So going through it, struggling with it, trying to understand it, trying to make sense of it, that is what creates the growth. And it has to be enough of that to undermine what you currently believe. So you could be waiting for this huge thing to go wrong in your business, or you could constantly seek out what is not working so that you can make it better. That's a key piece of this. The key here is that the emotional pain is necessary. You can't do this without emotional pain. You can't just avoid it your whole life. They're right. The identification of strength is often correlated almost paradoxically with an increased sense of being vulnerable. How cool is that? That the strength you gain is associated with the recognition of, hey, I'm vulnerable. So if we invert that and think, the more you think, oh, I am invulnerable to pain, my business is invulnerable to what could go wrong, the less strength you feel. So the more strength you want to feel, the more you have to admit that you are vulnerable, to see the vulnerabilities in your business and get excited by them, to be curious about them. And they continue, growth in this domain is experienced as a combination of the clear knowledge that bad things can and do happen, and the discovery that if I handled this, then I can handle just about anything. So going into those moments where you have succeeded and overcome difficult things in the past is key as well. But what happens is that you can lay the foundations now by building up this reference book of competence of, hey, look at all these difficult things I've done. One of the first steps that you go through once the traumatic experience or the big revelation of difficulty in your business has been uncovered is you engage in something called self-disclosure. And self-disclosure means admitting to yourself what you're really feeling, uncovering what's really going on, telling yourself the content of your mind. And in fact, the authors found that the more people go through the self-disclosure, the better they do. How different is that, from hiding from what you really believe, hiding from what you don't want to feel. The trauma is what sets this growth pathway in motion, or can set this growth pathway in motion, the difficult event. But what actually gets you growing is that self-disclosure. And there's a few things that determine how much growth you're likely to get. For example, people with extroversion or who rate highly in extroversion and openness to new experience, they get a bit more growth. But you can start building your awareness to emotion. Like, in fact, one of the key things they found is the more open you are to feeling, the higher amounts of post-traumatic growth you're likely to get. So the more you're willing to feel. Again, that is so different from these bullshit concepts of machismo and masculinity and mental strength that we have. The more you're willing to feel, the more likely you are to grow. And we flip the inversion of that as well. The less willing you are to feel, the less likely you are to grow. That stubbornness does not work. The first step that we have to do is okay, so we've gone through that self-disclosure, and then we go into managing your distressing emotions. Easy for me to say, hey? We've got to go and explore them. We've got to get to know our emotional self. The authors found that you have to do that in order to grow. And one of the most effective ways to manage those distressing emotions they found was through support and disclosure. Okay, that's a two-part thing. So what they've basically found is telling someone, talking to someone, understanding what you feel, disclosing what you feel to someone else is what helps you grow. This is what they wrote. Supportive others can aid in post-traumatic growth by providing a way to craft narratives about the changes that have occurred and by offering perspectives that can be integrated into schema change. So again, that word schema is belief. So what does that mean? Well, supportive others can aid in post-traumatic growth. Basically, other people can help you by providing a way to craft narratives about the changes that have occurred. So can someone just help you frame it? This is why coaching is so essential. And by offering perspectives that can be integrated into a schema change. So these people can help. A good listener, a good coach can help you reframe what you're experiencing so that it becomes better, so that you become better, so that you reconceptualize your view of the world. What they found is essential is you need someone that has been there before. This is why a general therapist isn't going to work, because you need someone who's been in the world of business to understand, because otherwise you're just not going to listen. You need someone who has built a business that has struggled with these things, maybe not in the same industry, but someone who's understood. It's why my coaching actually works so well, to be very blunt, because I've been here, I understand it. It's also why business coaches usually won't work, because they're not trying to help you understand new schema. Or build new schema. They're not trying to help you reframe the world and how you view it. Instead, what they're trying to do is just give you another thing and another thing and another thing. It takes you to do the work to understand why those things didn't work. So you need to explore the situation with another, because it's there where the emotion and the wisdom and the growth can come to light. You need to explore the difficulty. The article, the paper then goes into a deep section on types of rumination, and I'm not going to go into it for too long, but there's some important points. Firstly, they found two different types of rumination. They found the rumination thinking, I'm just going over the same thing over and over and over again, that's linked to depression. And that's like this unconscious, I can't control it, it's just going wherever I can. But they found a very useful type as well. And the useful type is conscious, so you're aware of what's happening. You might not be controlling it, but you're aware of it. It revolves around an instrumental theme, so there's something key that this is revolving around. And finally, it occurs without a direct cueing from the environment, but it's easily and indirectly cued because it's connected with your big, overarching, important goals, which leads to these thoughts kind of looping around. In other words, the goal is key. We need the goal. We need a struggle, a push towards something better. So we need to pull out those goals and be aware of them. So some key things as well some more key points in this is growing does not lessen distress. I know I've said this before in different ways, but you're still going to feel the discomfort. And in fact, again, you need to feel it in order to grow. And there's these two quotes here that I'd like to read from two different people about what they experience, because if you can translate this into the world of business, you win. Okay, so the first one is from Rabbi Harold Kushner, who his son died in awful situations. He said, "Because of this, I'm a more sensitive person, a more effective pastor, a more sympathetic counselor because of Aaron's life and death than I ever would have been without it. And I'll give up all of those gains in a second if I could have my son back. If I could choose, I'd forgo all of the spiritual growth and depth which has come my way because of our experiences. But I cannot choose." You can feel how heartbroken he is about that. It does not stop him feeling the pain. Like, it's not blinding yourself to the pain of it, but it is adding meaning to it. He who has a why can bear almost any how, in Nietzsche's words. And the other piece is from a musician who suffered a permanent paralysis, and he basically just went into asking himself the big questions. And he came up with this. "This was the one thing that happened in my life that I needed to have happen. It was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. If I hadn't experienced this and lived through it, I likely wouldn't be here today because of my lifestyle previously. I was on a real self-destructive path. If I had to do it all over again, I would want it to happen the same way. I would not want it not to happen." So it sucked, but that was key to his growth. What this does is the discomfort, the pain, the terrible loss forces you to build new ways of viewing the world, more intelligent, more accurate ways of viewing the world. They're better representations. They're a more accurate worldview. It has to cause this struggle because it's the struggle that forces you to grow. And the more these people that experience these things dived into their thoughts initially, something that they call cognitive processing in this paper, the better growth they experience. And quite a cool thing is the better growth, so the growth creates wisdom. You become wiser, you get updated frameworks, and you get more appreciation for this. And I'm going to wrap up with a couple of things. One is a general summary of this process. So, but try and just think about how this applies to you and your business. Like, sure, you're going to experience very difficult things in your business, but this is about the continued growth. So, long bit, okay. The process of post-traumatic growth is set in motion by the occurrence of a major life crisis that severely challenges and perhaps shatters the individual's understanding of the world and his or her place in it. Certain personal qualities, extroversion, openness to experience, and perhaps optimism may make the growth a bit more likely. Okay, so again, like, there are some personalities who will do better with this, but you can kind of open yourself up to experience. You can begin to nudge that personality trait, which is somewhat fixed, but you can nudge it to experience, to open it up. Initially, the individual typically must engage in coping responses needed to manage the overwhelming emotions, but intense cognitive processing of the difficult circumstances also occurs. So yeah, you need to understand how to feel what you're feeling and also think through it. That's key. So how does that apply to the challenge that you're facing in business right now? The degree to which that person is engaged cognitively by the crisis appears to be a central element in the process of post-traumatic growth. So you need to switch on. You need to go into it. You can't keep on hiding it. You need to be aware of what's happening internally. The individual social system may also play an important role in the general process of growth, particularly through the provision of new schemas related to growth and the empathetic acceptance of disclosures about the traumatic event and about growth-related themes. So work with someone. Continue to understand yourself by employing a coach, by hiring someone to help you do this. Post-traumatic growth seems closely connected to the development of general wisdom about life and the development and modification of the individual's life narrative. Okay, so post-traumatic growth seems closely connected to the development of general wisdom. So you basically, one way to become very wise is to experience very difficult things, which is so recurrent through literature, through ancient religion. There's so much of that. Some degree of psychological upset or distress is necessary not only to start the process of growth in motion, but also enduring upset may accompany the enhancement and maintenance of post-traumatic growth. So do not hide the discomfort from whatever is difficult in business. So that was the kind of overall theme. I think you understand this now. And there's one cool part that was really hidden in the end. And they wrote, I can't believe it's so close to the end, but they wrote, positive experiences also have a similar effect on the domains of post-traumatic growth, especially if they're extraordinary enough to challenge schemas the way that traumatic events do. They just have to be significant enough to challenge your schemas. So this doesn't have to be awful things. It can be incredibly positive things as long as you integrate them into your updated worldview. As long as you build a more accurate representation of the world and explore your emotions, understand yourself, what makes it's not just emotions either, it's your beliefs, it's the cognitive side, it's what you know. And we need to be able to understand this at a deeper level. That's what it is. You need to go through these peak experiences, you need to get curious about what's going on. So what does this mean for you? Well, 3 lessons from me today. Firstly, stop avoiding your failures. Get excited about finding them. Go towards them, explore your limits, and actually invite more failure into your life because it's essential so that you can gain data so you can grow quicker. Second, get a coach, get a mentor, someone who's been in the business arena who can guide you to better, deeper awareness. It's also why business coaches are not going to help you grow, as I've discussed before. And finally, get into peak experiences to challenge your schema, to challenge your worldview. Do amazing things, do difficult things, push yourself, because that is where growth lives.